Welcome back to The Silent Mother, a space where we honor the quiet, unseen parts of motherhood and give voice to stories too often left in the dark. Today's episode is one that sits heavy and beautiful in equal measure. I had the privilege of speaking with Melissa, a mother whose strength shines through unimaginable heartbreak. Melissa's journey into motherhood began in 2014 when she gave birth to her daughter Audrey at just 24 weeks gestation. Audrey lived just over a day, but those hours changed Melissa's life forever. In this conversation, Melissa shares what it was like to navigate the NICU, the devastation of infant loss, and the way grief continues to shape her life as a mother of four. We talk about the pressure to hold it together, the guilt and isolation so many of us carry, and how Melissa found healing in honoring Audrey's memory through writing and community. This episode is a testament to love that transcends time and the courage it takes to keep going when the world expects you to be okay. Without further ado, let's meet Melissa.
My name's Melissa. My journey into motherhood started in 2014 when my husband and I were expecting our first child. This was my first pregnancy, so everything was going, smoothly up until she was born prematurely at 24 weeks. And so, again, up until this point, I didn't have any complications. I was healthy, baby was healthy. And then just one evening, started having some lower back pain, nothing too major, but I worked in healthcare at the time. And so I thought I must have just overdid it today. And so my back is sore. And then as the evening progressed, I started having some cramping, which was probably contractions. But again, first pregnancy wasn't expecting contractions at 24 weeks. And so I just thought, oh, my stomach hurts. I'm not feeling good. So an hour after that had started, I called my OB and they said, oh, you're probably just dehydrated. Drink some water, try and rest, call us back if it doesn't get better or if you experience any spotting or bleeding. And so did that, wasn't getting better, drank a ton of water, went to use the restroom and had some spotting. So we called and they were like, get into the emergency room. So we got there and everything was still just moving kind of slowly. They got us in a room. It took a while for somebody to come and check on us. And when the nurse came in and did check me, I was fully dilated. And she went and got it. She was like, I'm going to grab another nurse. Went and grabbed the other nurse. And she was like, yeah, this baby is coming tonight. You're fully dilated. We can't stop it at this point. So it was just very much a whirlwind of what in the world just happened. So they're in, the anesthesiologist is in, NICU doctor came in. At the time, I worked at Mercy Hospital. So that's where I was going to deliver. That's where I went. But they don't have a NICU there. And so they were like, once the baby is born, we're going to transfer her to Altman, actually. Just a whirlwind. So
Yeah.
they were going to let me try and have her vaginally. And then her heart rate really started dropping for too long. So they were like, we got to do a C-section. So they took me back for that. And when she was born, there was no cry. There was no noise. It was just silence. And other than them saying, you have a baby girl. And in that moment, despite all just chaos that was going on, I had never experienced the love of a mother until that moment. The heart of a mother was born in me also in that moment. And I just felt like I have never loved anything more than this little girl. And the NICU team was in there and they took her to the side and I couldn't see her, but my husband could. And he said she just was limp. She, was laying there and they were doing all the things to try and get her to breathe. And he said I could see their expressions and it didn't look good. It just was a very dismal moment. And Then all of a sudden, he was like, her legs started kicking like crazy. We both felt so hopeful in that moment. And they let him take some videos of her, and then her in the ambulance once she was stable and took her to Altman. So then I'm in recovery at Mercy at another hospital. And during that time, they didn't give you like passes where you can go and visit and then come back to the hospital. You had to be discharged if you wanted to get over there to see, to go to another hospital to see your baby. And so I was stuck at Mercy. She was at Altman. My husband was going back and forth. And the doctor would call me, like the neonatologist. The first like several reports during that first 24 hours was really good. Like, oh, she's holding her own. She, we think she has some infection, but we've started antibiotics and seems like she's, responding well enough to that. And so we just like felt so hopeful, like what a little miracle she's going to be, and we're going to get through this. And the following day, so she was born on the 13th, following day, like in the evening. So she had almost survived for 2 days, but that evening they called. The NICU called and they said, you got to get over here. She's really taken a turn and we want you to see her. And so my doctor then came in, and it just was like another kind of chaotic moment of trying to do the paperwork to get me discharged, to get me over there.
You had a C-section too.
Mm-hmm.
They took Cadence right away too, and I was in the recovery in the hospital recovering from a C-section, and I had to wait days before they allowed me
Mm-hmm.
to safely leave and see her.
Mm-hmm.
So I can
Right.
imagine how chaotic. You're fresh. You're also your first C-section. You have no
Yeah.
clue. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Just a lot. Yeah.
Kind of cut out a little bit. She was born February 13th.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is now the 14th when they were like, you need to get over here. Thankfully, I had a friend visiting me at that time. And so she was like helping me pack everything up. And my husband got there, went and got the car, pulled it up. And then she was able to wheel me down because, again, C section.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like very numb at that moment. Like, sure, like she was just fine. She was just doing really well like a few hours ago. Like, surely this is gonna be okay. We got in there. So this is the first time I'm meeting her too. And that's, as you know, walking into a NICU room, it's just overwhelming. There's lots of,
Mm-hmm.
it's very medical and just lots of wires and tubes and
And they're
beeps and
not the only
alarms.
babies. There's other babies just
Yeah.
like that. Ugh.
So we get in there and they were like, go ahead, you can go ahead and put your hand, in there. And when we did that, like her tiny little hand, just like big enough to grasp my finger, found my finger and just like gripped on so tight. And it was such a just sweet moment. And I'll never forget it. I felt like, wow, she is like so strong.
I'm sorry. I
And
have the exact same picture from the first time putting my hand
oh,
in through. I mean, Cadence
yes.
was full term, so she was bigger, but like
Yeah.
that was, I
Yeah.
understand.
It is so special. Like, you'll never forget it, right? And
No, and you have so much hope. You're like,
yes.
she's alive. She's moving.
Yeah.
She knows me. She's got
Yeah.
this.
Yes. And so they were like, "You can talk to her. She can hear you. She probably recognizes your voice and all of this, and she recognizes your smell." And so it was like the
Mm-hmm.
first moment I felt like I'm okay, I'm bonding with her. I'm connecting with her in these moments. Like, surely she's going to pull through this. And they gave us some time with her alone, and then they came in and they said, "These machines," because she was intubated, "they're just not gonna keep her alive." Basically, like, the infection has overtaken her little body. She's just not strong enough. The antibiotics aren't strong enough, all this. She had sepsis.
Was it?
Mhm.
That's ultimately what Cadence died from too.
Yeah. The doctor was like, we would love to get her out so that you can hold her." And that was hard My parents were there too, and I remember looking at my mom because I'm only
Yeah, how
24 at the
okay.
time. And I looked at my mom and was like, "I don't know." Like, of course, I wanna hold her, but, like, the thought of her passing in my arms feels really heavy, and I don't know, like, if I can carry that, and my mom was like, "It's whatever you wanna do." She was like, "I think that you'll look back and wish that you had held her, while she was still with us," and that's what we chose to do, and they got her out, and it really was just a few minutes before she had passed, and,
Mm,
I do look back at that and think, "Wow, that was hard for me and heavy for me to hold on to," like, I'm so glad that in her last moments, she was in my arms, and she didn't feel alone, and,
she
that
felt
she
your love.
yeah. While it was a heavy moment, I felt like this is how I can be her mom right now.
That's what I was just gonna say, the epitome of you put your emotions and your struggles behind, and you were the
Mhm.
mom that she needed.
Yes. We had some time with her still, and we always say she's our little Valentine,
Yeah.
'cause that's when we really got to, like, spend time with her and hold her, and Valentine's Day looks different for us now. Those moments with her that I'll never forget, and, just really changed me, and I know I'm a different mom today because of her, the one that made me a mom. I'm different today in good ways because of her. That is our story with Audrey.
Audrey, okay, it's the first time
Yes,
you said her name.
yes.
I
So,
love that name, honestly.
and speaking of her name, when we hadn't even decided on a name that night that I went into the hospital, I had, like, really liked the name Audrey, and my husband was not that he didn't like it, but he was more just like, "Mm, maybe." And, the neonatologist came in and she was like, "Do you guys have a name?" Like, this was before she was born. And I was like, "No, we're still so early, you know?" And she was like, "Well, pick a strong name." And my husband and looked at me and he said, "It looks like we're gonna meet our little Audrey Lynn tonight." And
Aw,
I was like, "Oh," but,
start crying.
yeah. Later, we were looking up, like, what the name Audrey meant, and it means noble strength. So, the fact that the
Perfect.
doctor was like, "Pick a strong name,"
Mhm.
and then it literally had strength in it. So, she has certainly strengthened us. She fought with all that she had, and I'll always look at her as just a strong little lady.
I'm
So,
so thankful that you were able to revive her in the beginning to at least give
yes,
you guys some
yes.
time with her.
Yes, because that has been a question too where my husband and I have thought like, "Well, why?" We are Christians, and so we were, really praying in that moment, like, "Lord, please revive her, give her life," and then she just, like, passed anyways, and so that was, like, a big question in our mind for some time.
Yeah,
It's like, "Well, why it felt like he answered that prayer for us in that moment, but then ultimately, like, we still lost her. And now we can look at it and say, well, how much harder it would have been to not have any time with her, like, while she was alive and moving and active. And we're, like you said, like, we're so thankful that it didn't just end right there, like after delivery, that we had those moments and memories with her.
you got to know her a little bit.
Yeah, yes, for sure. We still were kind of like, "What happened? Why did this happen?" Everything was looking so good up until this point. I didn't have, like, an infection or anything like that, and so we ended up meeting with an MFM OB who deals with a lot of high risk pregnancies and just wanting to know, like, what did the future look like for us, like, were kids going to be in our future. He looked at all my records and stuff and determined that this was as a result of an incompetent cervix. So basically, isn't that a
That
terrible
is
name?
so, yes.
I know. I'm like, I already feel like,
Yeah,
like a
incompetent
failure.
serve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So basically, you just start dilating very early without contractions until you are like in labor. So I had probably been slowly dilating for some time
And that
because
back
I
pain,
wasn't
you
having, yeah, any problems. They weren't doing cervical checks or anything like
right, you
that.
were so
Neither
early.
one. Yeah. So he was like, I have a lot of patients that I deal with this same problem. What we do is we put a cerclage in, a stitch around your cervix after, the first trimester. And then he
Okay.
was like, we have a lot of success with this. He was an older doctor, so he'd been practicing for over 30 years. Loved him so much. So he was like, I think you're a good candidate for this. We can do this again. And he was so compassionate too. Like, I'm so sorry what you went through and just what we needed. So in the end of 2014, then we conceived again and got in with that high risk doctor. And at 15 weeks, he put that stitch in. I made it to 37 weeks.
Okay.
At like 34 weeks, I kind of started going into early labor. They were able to slow things down, but they did take that stitch out at 34 weeks. I went straight to 5 centimeters when they took it.
Wow.
So they were like, we're going to keep you in the hospital because we're
Yeah.
afraid if we send you home, you're going to have this baby in the car. So I stayed in the hospital and they were expecting, like, probably within the next few days, you're going to have him. Well, our son, we knew it was a boy at that point. But then he didn't, like, no contractions, nothing. So I sat in there for 3 weeks
So
in the
you were in the hospital the
hospital.
whole time?
Yeah,
Oh my
because
gosh.
they could, like, see him, like, they could see that he had dark hair.
Oh
They
my
would, like, text
gosh.
me, yeah. They were like, "He is, like,
He's
real
in there. Could
close."
you
Yeah,
could you feel that? Like pressure down
for sure, yeah,
there?
but
Okay.
nothing like no, like, major contractions, like, all this
Okay.
stuff. Part of me was like, "All right, buddy, like, you can come out now.
Yeah, like
You're a good size, like, I'm a
you're
little
saying.
tired of being in the hospital," but at 37 weeks, they ended up inducing me because
Okay.
they were like,
He was hanging out.
yeah, and they were like, "We don't want you to have to stay in here. He's measuring pretty big, so let's just go ahead and get this show on the road." And so he was 8 pounds at 37 weeks, so he was a
Big
big,
boy.
big, healthy boy and no complications. We were able to go home, and
Good.
he was, I mean, just not that he could ever replace Audrey, but such a gift of joy for us
Yeah.
after a big loss. Just everything, after we lost Audrey, there was that time where it was like, am I ever gonna be a mom? And
Yep.
after, like, this heart of a mother was born in me when she was born, and then she was taken away, and yet I still felt I had, like, all
Mhm.
this love of a mom, but nobody to give that to
Yep.
actively. And so when he was born, it's just everything I ever could have hoped for it to be.
2015 he came? So
Yes.
a little over a year after
Yeah.
Audrey was born. Okay.
Yes. He is turning 10 in May, which is crazy.
Mhm.
He's just been perfect for us. When he was about close to 4, we had some time where we were like, if he is all we ever have, that's okay. Like, we're just so thankful to have him. And then I started getting some more nephews. And so his cousins were getting little siblings. And
Mm.
he was like, I wish I could have a little brother, and like saying things like that. And so, of course, like we started thinking about it some more, and we were like, he's more independent now, like I think we could do that again. That went
Yeah.
really well. Like my doctor was still practicing, so we could totally pull that off. So we conceived then in 2018, or no, 2019, spring
Right before
2019.
COVID.
Yes. So I went to the doctor for my first appointment, and he always does like an 8-week scan ultrasound. Went there. My husband was working at the time, so and had a lot going on with work. So I was like, it's okay. I can go by myself. It'll be fine. They like started the scan, and she put the transducer on, and then she took it off kind of quickly. And like they have the TV, so I'm like watching it.
Watching.
And, like, something caught my eye, and I, like, looked over at her, and she was like, "Is this did you do fertility treatments?" And I said, "No." And then she was like, "Okay." So then she puts it back on, and she was like, "I think I see 2 babies." And I was like, "I see that too." And so I'm just, like, in a little bit of shock, like, twins don't really run in our family, and just thinking, like, boy, I can hardly carry 1 to term. Of course, I would get pregnant with 2.
Mhm.
Just
Of course, I
feeling
thought life was gonna be easy because it was
yeah,
easy again, and why
right.
not?
Yes. So, like, having twins is not something that ever popped into my mind. I don't
Mm-mm.
know why. I just was like, twins don't run in our family. I don't think about it. The doctor came in, and one was measuring quite a bit smaller than the other one. So the doctor was like, "There's a chance that one may not make it."
I'm sorry because again, I'm listening to your story for the first time, and
Mhm,
it's amazing the similarities. So with my youngest daughter, who's now 6,
mhm,
she was a twin when we went in, but because and I that was the same type of thing. She pulled it
mhm,
away and she asked if I did infertility and
uh-huh,
knew that I had already had future children or other children.
mhm,
And so it's funny how they ask that question when they see multiples.
yeah,
But the same thing, one was severely smaller, and they warned us that more than likely we were going to lose that. And when we went in two
mhm,
weeks later, that one was gone.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
thank you. We were
Mhm,
just so happy because that was actually following a miscarriage as well. So we
mm.
were just so happy to have her. And now, my gosh, can't imagine if there were 2 of her. But that was so interesting to me that like same type of
Yeah,
once measuring smaller. So I'm
yeah.
sorry, continue.
No, yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I said, "So what do we do about, like, are we still gonna put that stitch in at 14, 15 weeks?" And, he just, like, gave me this look, and he was like, "I am so sorry, like, we don't do that with twins,
Oh,
'cause it can, like, inhibit growth."
oh my gosh.
He was like, "Standard is that you don't put those in early." And he was like, "Now, if you start dilating early, I will put one in, like, as an emergency." He's like, "Some doctors won't do that, but given your history, I wanna do that for you." And so he was like, "We just, we'll do cervical checks, like, every other week once you get into that 2nd trimester." And then they went to weekly, and so lots of appointments, but over that time, baby B caught up. He was like, "They're both looking about
That's
the
so
same
great.
size now." Yep, and so, yeah, we'll just keep monitoring. So, at 21, I had my 20-week, like, anatomy scan, and that all looked good, and then I went in the next week for a cervical check, and they were like, "It looks like you're starting to, like, funnel."
Mm.
So, he was like, "I wanna get you in tomorrow, we'll put it in, and then keep monitoring." So,
We were so close to the same week that you had Audrey. So like,
yeah,
ugh, I can't even
yeah,
imagine how that felt.
yes. So, got that put in, he was like, "Everything looks really good." And then I went in at 23 weeks. They checked my cervix, things were looking good, stitch was in place, and then came home, was feeling like, "Ah, I'm so, like, thankful, we're getting there," you know? Went to bed the next night, and literally, I rolled over in bed, like, I was sleeping, rolled over in bed, and my water broke. Gush of fluid, and I just, like, ran to the bathroom. I'm like waking up my husband, like, this isn't good. This isn't good. Middle of the night, our son is sleeping. I have a friend who lives just a few houses down. I called her. I was like, can you come over till my mom can get here? We got to get to the hospital. Again, just kind of like that numb feeling of like, surely this isn't happening again. Here we are, even earlier than Audrey, 23 weeks. And I guess in my mind, I just always thought if your water breaks, like they're coming. And so
Yeah.
that's where I was like, oh, they're going to be born tonight. Thankfully, I was not having contractions, no pain, no cramping.
Okay.
We get to the emergency room, and I was no longer like losing fluid. So then they were like, are you sure your water broke? And I was like, I'm pretty sure.
You
Like,
can't just have an
yeah,
accident, you
yeah.
know.
No, I don't think it was that. So then they like tested the fluid, and they were like, no, that was amniotic fluid for sure. Like your water
Okay.
broke, but it seems like there's maybe just a leak or something, like a slower leak. Because then they did like an ultrasound and they were like, she still has, so they were in separate waters.
Okay.
This was baby A, and they were like, she still has fluid in there. What do you want to do? You want us to take that cerclage out? And I was like, why am I making this decision?
Yeah.
I don't know. My doctor was not there. This was like the middle of the night. I was like, can we just like wait? Can we just sit here and wait till my doctor gets in? You know, I want his opinion on this. So, and they were like, keeping that cerclage in puts you at more of a risk of infection for them, for you,
Oh.
which was a big scare because Audrey had,
Yeah.
you know, died of an infection. So, but also I was like, if you take it out, they're probably like coming.
Yeah.
And they're like, there's a good chance. Yeah. So we left the stitch in. And the next morning, my doctor got in and he was like, I think we just put you on antibiotics. We'll keep you in here. Let's keep them in as long as we can. They gave me magnesium, which makes you feel like you're on the flu, but also like drugged and just like makes you feel so bad, but it helps to like stop any labor that would come. And then it also helps with like their brains, like it protects the baby's brains. So
Okay.
it's worth it.
Yes.
But it's still so terrible.
Another sacrifice of a mother.
Yes, yes. So, anyways, it felt like every day there was like a new symptom that I was having or just a new challenge. But we were able to keep them in for another 15 days. So that got us to 25
Nice.
weeks.
Once again, you were lying in the hospital for
Yes.
that whole time.
Yes. Which was also like this time I had our son Asher at home.
Yeah.
And he's like 4, and just all of a sudden, like, I don't that broke my heart too,
Yeah.
having to be away from him. And
Was this right before all the COVID precautions? Was he still allowed to come see you at least?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
this was October
Okay.
20. And the NICU doctor came and talked to us at so that she was from Children's this time because I was in Akron. She was like, I know you already have a history, like you kind of know what we're looking at here. I guess just tell me like your questions or concerns. And this was when I was still just 23 weeks. He said, I know that it's multiple, so they're even smaller than my daughter Audrey was at 24 weeks. And we're a week before that. And
Mhm.
it didn't end well with her. And so I'm not feeling super hopeful.
Yeah.
And she was like, very compassionate, like so nice. But she also was like, I do want to give you some hope that that was 2014. We're 2019 now. And we've, like, even in just those years, we've come so far with what we can do for these really little babies. And she
Uh-huh.
was like, we have some babies survive at 22 weeks now. And so it was just enough, like, a glimmer of hope that she gave
Good.
me. About a week before that, we had a resident come in and like check me one night. So baby A, her lungs are just going to be more compromised because she doesn't have as much fluid.
Okay.
Because I just every day was losing more fluid. This was like right before I'm going to bed. She is like asking us if we would want to let baby A go to give baby
Mm.
B a bigger, like a better chance. My husband like stopped her. It's like,
Ugh.
we have already been through a loss and like we need to give both of them every chance that they can have. Like we want to save both of them. I don't know. She just was like very cold and like
Mm.
medical about it, you know,
Yeah.
emotions aside. And then I'm like, how am I supposed to go to sleep after that? Like I'm all just feeling all these things. And I don't think we had her again after that, which I was happy for.
Yeah.
um, so, okay, then one night, like every night I would have like some contractions, but didn't lead to anything. But then the night that they were born, it was like in my back this time and
Mm.
pressure, and like they just weren't going away. And so hit my call light, and the nurse came in and brought in the doctor, and they were like, "It's time. Like
Mm.
it's time for them to be born." So did a C-section for them as well. This time they both cried right after they were
Oh.
born, and I could hear them. And
Oh.
it was just like this little meow of a cry, like so tiny and small, but it just was like, oh, felt so good. Like, okay,
Mhm.
they're alive. Like they're
Yeah.
breathing on
You
their
know,
own.
yeah.
Yeah, that gave me so much hope too. And so they were able to stabilize them. While I was in recovery, they brought them over, like, so that I could see them before they took them to Akron Children's. And
Mm.
so different NICU doctor came in, and I'll never forget, like, thankfully, I was, like, really sick after the surgery, just, like, feeling loopy,
Mhm.
not totally with it, and maybe that was a good thing because, like, I'll just like, he looked at us and he shrugged his shoulders and was like, "We'll do what we can for them." I was like, looking back, I was like, "That just was not the right delivery."
Right, I probably would've thrown my bedpan
Yeah,
at him.
yeah. I'm so out of it. I'm, like, signing papers and
That's insane too that they could let you sign papers like that
I
after they just put a bunch of drugs in you,
I know.
major
I'm like,
surgery.
"What am I even signing here?"
They probably just took my whole uterus, they're
Yeah.
giving it to someone else at this point.
Got them over to Akron Children's, took me to my room, like, for recovery. I ended up just being, like, really sick, like, couldn't keep water down, was, like, throwing up all night. And so the next day, they were like, "I don't think you should leave." They did do passes then. They were like, "You can get a day pass to go visit your babies, and then you can come back here
Mhm.
whenever you feel able to." But the nurses were like, "I don't you're not ready. Like, you
Yeah.
take care let's take care of you," which was hard,
Right.
because you just wanna see see them and be close to them. The next day, I was able to go. Felt really overwhelming, like, going back into that environment again. Just remember, like, being on the elevator in my little wheelchair, and my husband
Mhm.
was, like, wheeling me around, and I, like, stopped him for a minute, was like, "I feel so nervous to go into that environment again because that's where I first saw Audrey, and that's the last time I saw Audrey."
Mhm.
And I just feel overwhelmed by that. And
Mhm.
he was like, "I know." Like, I felt like that too. Got our bearings again and then went into their room, and it was just like flashbacks because they looked exactly like her. Like, all I could see was her and
And they were both girls too?
both
Or
girls. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then it's just so I don't know how it was for you at Akron Children's, but once we were there, like, everybody got their own room. So
Okay.
that was kinda nice.
That is nice. When I was there now this was 10 years prior,
Okay.
in 2009. there were maybe 4 to 6 babies per room.
A pod. Yeah.
Yeah, they each had their own little thing and
Mhm.
each had a rocking chair. So I was
Mhm.
in there with, several mothers at the same time and just, I mean,
Yeah.
it was kind of nice because like you're just there and you're just kind
You're
of
not
like,
alone. Yeah.
yeah, you're not alone and you
Mhm.
kind of start become a family, you root for the other babies, you see them
Mhm.
graduate.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Well,
that was nice for you guys to have. Were they in
yeah.
the same room though together at least?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They have twin rooms. So I can see the pros and cons of both. Like,
Hmm.
where you would feel that kind of like sense of community or like togetherness if you were in there with other moms. But also, I think about just the roller coaster we were on
Right.
in there, and like I just would feel like I couldn't like let go with my
Mm,
emotions.
okay.
Having a room to ourselves where I could just like lose it was
You
good.
were more comfortable losing it
Yeah,
in
yeah,
private. Okay.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm okay. I'm a public crier,
yeah.
so I'm
Yeah,
comfortable being crying in front of
yeah,
people. It's okay.
yeah. We spent like all night in there, but I don't know. It just felt like a very heavy night. Of course, like I was happy to like see them. They were alive, they were moving. But then like the doctor comes in and like just gives this list of here's all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what we're doing to try and help those problems. But a lot of it's just going to be time to see, how they respond. And that was all just so heavy, was a lot. And then I felt like, should I stay here the whole time? Like, should I never go home?
Mm-hmm.
Because then I also have my son at home where I felt
Yeah.
bad leaving him too. And also, if I'm just being honest, like mentally, I don't think I can stay in this room 24/7. Just
No.
all of the alarms and all of it, the smells, the
Well, you have probably have
tons of
PTSD from Audrey, and anytime you hear an alarm or the doctor walks in, you're like, okay, what's happened? What's
yeah,
going on now? Is
yes,
this the
yeah,
time I lose them?
right. You're just like on high alert the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like relaxing. This one doctor, she's so nice. I don't know if you had Dr. Protein at all at Children's. Well, so she is like one I'll never forget because she is so kind and so just like sympathetic. And she was like, you don't have to stay here all the time. It is not good for anybody to
Mm-hmm.
stay in here for too long. Go home, sleep in your own bed. You're recovering too. It was the first time I felt like, oh, you're seeing me too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
here I just went through a surgery and all these things. And she was like, you need to sleep too. Your girls need you to be well for them to be well. She was like, sleep in your own bed, eat food outside of this hospital. Just really gave me the, not that I needed permission, but I kind of felt like I needed permission.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You can leave. You're not a bad mom if you
Mm-hmm.
take a break from
You're a
this.
better mom if you take care of yourself.
Yes. So that was instrumental. And even my husband was like, it's not that you don't want to be with our babies. It's just that environment is a
Yeah.
lot to be in. And so you're not like failing them by taking a break or whatever. Anyways, they had brain bleeds. So their names are Cora and Jane. Cora was my baby A, whose water broke, that they were like, her lungs are not gonna, they're gonna have a harder time. And they did. And then Jane was baby B. She had fluid the whole time. But she actually had the rougher start. She had like a pulmonary hemorrhage on
Oh my
day
goodness.
2 of life. And even just like her breathing and stuff, it was all worse for her in the beginning. So initially, like, we were worried about her. And
She
then,
was the one originally that was smaller in utero that we could have
yeah,
lost, right? Okay.
yes, yeah, Jane was 1 pound, 8 ounces, and
Oh my
Cora was 1 pound, 9 ounces roughly.
Oh my
So
goodness.
just teeny, teeny tiny.
How big was Audrey?
1 pound four.
Okay, so right around the same then.
Mhm.
Okay.
It is shocking. Like, you think you hear like a pound and a half and you're like, oh, that's really small. But yet still, like, seeing them in person, I mean, it's just shocking. just like remember looking at them thinking, oh, they look so frail. Their skin is like almost translucent.
Mm-hmm.
And just, their eyes aren't even open yet. You just think like, oh, you have like everything going against you. And you're just this tiny little body. And yet you're so strong too. Like you're so resilient and so just brave. Like I think about all the things they went through that I wouldn't probably handle so well, and yet here they are just going through it. So we spent nearly 200 days in the NICU before they came home. And a lot of that was respiratory related. Cora was intubated for about 100 days,
Wow.
which, like, I think about now, it like breaks my heart that she had to have that tube like shoved down her throat all that time. And just, I think she just was uncomfortable for a long time, like just with breathing and all of that. Cora came home with oxygen, and
Okay.
then they both came home with G tubes, a feeding tube, like
Mm-hmm.
semi permanent. They surgically place it like in
Mm.
the stomach.
And then they can take it out in the
Yeah,
future. Mm-hmm.
yes, they had those, and feeding was just a really big challenge for them, which is common, like in preemies. But even when they sent us home, they were like, they probably won't need these too long. Like it'll
Oh,
probably be a
good.
few months. They didn't get them out till they were like 3.
Oh
Because
my gosh.
eating like totally shut down once we got home because they were older. They had so much reflux. Oh, it's just so bad. And we were working with, a feeding therapist and a nutritionist, and trying to do all the things, and just nothing was helping them. So that was a big journey once we got home. But then our nutritionist found a different like food blend that she had never tried before. She was like, let's give it a try. And it just totally, they stopped throwing up after a week of being on it.
Oh,
And
good.
then once they stopped throwing up, then they were like, oh, yeah, let's eat. And,
Mm-hmm.
they went straight to just like real food. And so then, yeah, they were able to get those removed. And Cora came off oxygen far
Okay.
before that. She was a little over a year once they were like, okay,
Now
no,
how old are they now?
5.
5.
Yeah, they just turned 5.
Since the G tube and the oxygen stuff, had they have any other issues? Or they, wow.
No, the only thing is that sometimes respiratory illnesses hit them harder. And
Okay.
so we've had a couple like hospitalizations for Cora when she's gotten like more than they can handle a cold pretty well,
Okay, but
but anything like RSV or
mm-hmm.
just any kind of virus that really like hits their lungs can take a little bit of a toll. But they haven't needed hospitalized since Cora was 3, I think. So
Okay.
it's been a couple years. So
That's so
the
great.
more they grow, and they're tolerating things better, and we just have to be a little more watchful with breathing stuff when they get sick. But they're learning how to read right now. And so
Oh.
things that we just didn't know, like our
Mm-hmm.
doctors were like, we don't know how these brain bleeds will affect them in the future, and we won't know till they're like 5.
Yeah.
And so here we are. They're
Mm.
5 and just doing all the things. And that NICU stay was like such a roller coaster. Losing Audrey was obviously so hard. And this was like a different type of hard. I don't know. Like just the ups and downs of like, oh, they're doing good. The next day they're doing bad. Oh, get
Mhm.
in here. They're not doing very good. And it went on for so long. It was just a different kind of hard. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Obviously, I would have gone through all of that to get Audrey home for sure.
Mhm.
But it took a different type of toll. And I think it's because it just went on for so long. It
Yeah,
was
you
so uncertain.
end in sight.
Yeah. And there
It
was so much uncertainty for so long,
yeah, back and
once we
forth.
once we lost Audrey, it was like, that is very final.
Mhm.
Not that like the grief ever goes away, but I listened to something you had shared, you hold it differently. You hold
Mhm.
grief differently, and the grief changes, and some days it feels really heavy again, but not every day feels that, like, crushing, you know? Yeah, I don't know, something about this long extended NICU stay, it was worth it 100%, but it really just took a toll on us
Well,
emotionally.
and I think they're only 5.
Yeah.
And you being having a 13-year-old daughter, you are going to go through so much with your
Mhm.
daughters. I mean, your son as well, but especially with them having the prior medical stuff. And just for me, taking what I went through with Cadence, it's almost like, yeah, I went through all of this heaviness and I'm still here. So nothing
Mhm.
else is going to take me down. And
Mhm.
even like, come on, girl, you survived losing Audrey and then you had 2 daughters that you had to watch. Like, that's insane. And then
Mhm.
200 days of ups and downs. And
Mhm.
you are probably the most fierce mama bear, and no one.
I will say it does change, for sure. Like when we were going through the NICU, had a lot of people say, just trying to be encouraging, saying things like, "Oh, you're so strong, you're so brave." And it comes from a good place. And like it's very sweet of them to say, but I didn't believe it when they
No.
said those things to me because I felt very broken and very just weary and
Yeah.
at my, like, breaking point. It felt like every other day. And
Right.
so I didn't feel brave, I didn't feel strong, but, like, looking back on it, I was saying this to somebody recently, you don't have to feel brave to do brave things.
Yep.
You show up scared sometime and you just keep showing up,
That's
and
courage.
yeah, that's what courage is. It's not being not afraid of anything or not worried about anything. It's showing up when you feel
Mm-hmm.
afraid or worried. I look at my girls and think, "Oh, you girls are so brave and so strong and you've overcome so many challenges." And that is so inspiring. And then I can see, not that I look at myself today and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so strong," or whatever, but I see growth through that,
Absolutely.
like,
And
wow,
let's
like,
go
who
back
did that?
to you saying you saw them in the NICU and they're so strong. And going back to what the doctor told you, that you need to take care of yourself, and taking care of yourself ultimately takes care of your daughters. You being able to walk in that room every day was strength. After what you went through with Audrey, some other mothers may not have been able to put that fear aside and walk through that door. So right there, you are strong enough that every day you sat there despite your fears, despite the beeping and the sensories of everything that reminded you and put you in a bad place. You still were there every day hoping out for them. And maybe that's what made them so strong.
You're sweet. Thank
Well,
you.
we got to look at this. Like, maybe if,
Yeah, yeah,
this was your plan.
yeah, mhm, for sure. Yeah, so fast forward to now, I am able to volunteer in the NICU at Akron Children's now. There's a lady who works there, and she is, like, the NICU family support person. And so she is kind of who I volunteer under. And so we just host things. Like we had a coffee bar for NICU families that they could swing through and get a coffee, stay and chat if they wanted to, or just take it back to their room. We had a hot cocoa bar. We do like a kind of holiday party with dinner at Christmas,
Oh my goodness.
and just little things like that to provide opportunity to like care for the moms and dads. They can take a minute to take care of
I mean,
themselves and
yeah.
feel, refueled or replenished, and even just, talk with other moms that are in there. Like you said, when you had your little pod rooms, like I love watching other moms connect with each other
Yeah.
and just like encourage each other and
Mhm.
listen to each other's stories. And they don't get that opportunity as much now that everyone has their own separate room.
Mhm.
So that's been special, but the first time I went in there, it was very overwhelming. Um, just the smells, the sounds, even seeing certain doctors and things. it just kind of emotionally drained me the first time
Mm-hmm.
I went in there because you just feel so many things, going in and helping other moms. It's been healing for me too because,
Good.
I can look at that place and feel those things and say that was so hard. And I will always look back on it and think that was so hard. And sometimes I feel like there's been moments where I felt like sad, like it's really sad that our family went through that. But also like balancing it with like, I'm so thankful that we came out on the other side. So thankful, that my girls are doing so well now. And it's just, I don't know, it's been a healing journey for me too. I feel like there's a lot of like, I don't know how to do this. What's the right way to like navigate this journey? And it looks different for
It
everybody.
does. And you feel completely helpless because you're just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, like you're praying and hoping and like, but there
Yeah,
is nothing you can do. Then
right.
watch the doctors and I'm not strong. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah,
But
right. But it's huge. Since we were in there for so long, like we started picking up on like just sitting there and observing, like, oh, I know that Cora isn't going to breathe as good when she's positioned that way. So like
mm-hmm.
being able to tell a nurse like, hey, she oxygenates better when she's like this, or like
Learn to
eat
start
better.
advocating for your child at a very
Yes.
early on. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so that is like a cool transformation too, where you go from like literally, what can I offer? Like I have nothing to
Mm-hmm.
offer here. Like that's how I felt when they were first born. Just your confidence grows and just
Mm-hmm.
you literally just watching them and you bonding with them
Mm-hmm.
is huge because then you can be their best advocate and no one's going to advocate for them like their mom.
No, nothing against nurses. I know that they have to put something, it takes a strong person. I come from a family of nurses and but just like it's as a mom, I get it.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
really get to learn your child in just a short amount of time and they have personalities
for
as
sure.
newborns.
From the beginning.
They
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And that too is like, it feels intimidating to advocate for your child in that setting sometime because, especially with babies,
Yeah.
if they can't communicate, then you have this like whole medical team. Like they would come in for rounds every morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's intimidating.
That
Like,
is. It, depending on who their doctor is. Like when we had Dr. Patel, he was great and he was very personal with me so that he
mhm,
always made sure like everyone said hi and he acknowledged the mom. But then you have
right.
other doctors and different than when they come in for their rounds, it's like you're not there and you're
You're
just
not
like, okay,
there.
it's my time to be quiet. Let me just
Yeah.
sit here while you
Mhm,
talk about my child like I'm not in the room.
yeah. And I think that's so wrong. Because you already feel like, "Ooh, I don't
You're
fit
so out
in
of
here."
place.
Yeah, and then when they don't acknowledge you as, like, mom or, even act like you're in there, then you really feel like, "Oh, I shouldn't say anything." But
Yeah.
really, like, moms just know their
They
baby.
have that
And
intuition.
I'm not saying, like, we know all the medical things or that doctors don't know what they're doing because I will forever be indebted to our doctors, and I'm
Yeah.
so appreciative, but there have been times where mom suggests something, and that happened with us too, and you're like, I know what she needs right now." And every baby's so different, so just because
Mm-hmm.
it says it in this book doesn't mean it's gonna be the case for every single baby, but that's hard
It
to
is.
speak up like that, but you do. You learn to find your voice and advocate in that way.
You do.
And
I
yeah.
think you're going to surprise yourself at how much more advocating for your kids you're probably going to do over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. Some growth happened
There
during
is.
that time. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that's try to find the reason in everything because I've been
Yeah.
through a lot.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the best reason I can find is how can I grow from this and what can I offer back?
Right.
There wasn't a lot in 2009. This still wasn't talked about a lot. I feel like
Mhm.
we've come a long way since COVID. Things
Mhm.
have just been brought out to the open and people are
Yeah.
more accepting of things and speaking about things.
Mhm.
But especially back then, I felt so alone and
Mhm.
as I grew up, and then people I knew around me were suffering miscarriages or certain similar situations, they would always reach out to me. Hey, so I had someone, a friend, what should I do? Or, hey, how
Mhm.
can I give them your name? And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah. And I kind of came this voice just to like to people around me. And I was like, as it's been 16 years for me, and my kids are growing up now, and I've been a stay-at-home mom, like you're used
Mhm.
to too. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, now what is my purpose? I became a mom at such a young age. I was
Mhm.
put through all of this stuff that made me have to be a mom and step up
Mhm.
and be an
Mhm.
advocating, and I feel like that's you too.
Mhm.
And I have the personality that I can give back in doing this by
Mhm.
doing a podcast and talking and sharing stories.
Mhm.
And didn't you write a book?
I did,
So tell
yes.
me about
So,
that.
wow, Cora and Jane were in the NICU. I always had my journal in there and did a lot of journaling because I felt like it was one way to get it out of my brain from cycling in
Mm-hmm.
my brain, um,
Yes.
get it on paper, and then I could, kind of take a step forward after that. Towards the end of their stay, I had written just like I didn't intend to. I just like started writing things and this poem came out. It was a poem to my girls. Once we got home, I was thinking about it and I was like, "Oh, this like could be a really sweet like children's book almost like that you could because we did a lot of reading in the NICU. There were lots of days where they were too fragile to hold. And so the only thing we could really do is like talk to them. And then you run out of things to say. So you just read books. You just
Mm-hmm.
keep reading books to them. And so I was like, this feels like it could be a sweet book. It's called Hello, Little Love. One of my childhood friends, she is like a self taught artist. She's amazing. And I was like, you don't have to say yes to this, but I'm having these thoughts and this inspiration. Like, would you be interested in illustrating it? And she was like, I would be so honored. So we worked on this together. And really, I would just give her photos because she's never experienced NICU, hasn't known anybody else other than me that's experienced NICU. So I showed her a lot of our photos. I was like, it does not have to look like me, just so you kind of have a feel for what it looks like in the NICU. She was like, well, I just want to draw you. Like, you're one of my best friends. Like, and I'm used to what your face looks like. It feels natural to be able to do that, whatever. She agreed to it, and we did like a self publishing thing. It is available on Amazon, wherever books are sold. Do you want me to like read through it?
That is up to you. You are the writer. So if
Okay.
you are giving yourself permission to do so, don't come and sue me.
Okay. I will not. It's very short. Hello, little love. We are so glad you're here. Your arrival surprised us, but we trust God is near. We want you to know you are loved beyond measure, and each moment we share is considered a treasure. As you lay sleeping, we count all your toes and gaze at your tiny but perfect shaped nose. When we soak in your details, so wonderfully made, your wires and beeping and problems all fade. That is when we really see you. You are tiny but strong. You are fragile yet resilient. You are brave. You are loved. You are ours. It's a blessing to know you, and despite all our fear, you are worth every prayer, each worry and tear. As we watch you grow, our faith grows too. God gave us a gift when He gave us you. In the back, there is kind of like you can fill in um,
Oh, that's
with your
cool.
baby's name, date, birth date, and then like space to write your own little letter to your little love.
Oh, that is beautiful. So if you're not watching and you're just listening right now, she
Mhm.
was holding up photos, the illustrations of the book, and they are illustrations of babies in the NICU with the wires. And then at the very end, it's a happy ending. We'll say that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
There
that was a
is, yeah,
beautiful book.
there is still a little tube in there at the
Mhm.
last picture because not everybody's homegoing looks the
No.
same,
But the smiling and then clothes, that was what it
The
said to me,
clothes.
was
Yes,
being clothed in
yes.
arms. I was like, "Oh, that baby's home."
Yes,
That's
yes. Kind of the inspiration behind this too was when the girls were first born, there was so much focus in my mind of like, here's all their problems. That's what we're hearing every day. This is what we're working on today. This is what we're going to try and fix. Oh no, this happened. Here's another hurdle, problem after problem. And I
Mhm.
felt like in my mind, I was always trying to think like, okay, how can we fix it? Like, is there something we're missing? That advocating role was
Mhm.
always going in my mind. And we had a couple of incredible nurses that we chose to like take care of our girls, be like their primary nurse. And they were so good at sometimes just like without saying it,
Mhm.
but changing the focus so that I was just like seeing them as my daughters. I wasn't like
Yes.
looking
I
at
agree with that, with the Akron Children nurses.
them doing little things like that made me, shift my focus, even if all those other thoughts would come back, all the worries and whatever. But like when I could have a moment of just like seeing them as my daughter and connect with them in that way, all the other stuff faded in the background. All the problems, all the hurdles, all the beeping, whatever. That's not where my focus was in those
Mhm.
moments. And that created like a bond between us. And same with Audrey, even when I
Mhm.
went to see her that first time and her little hand gripped onto my finger so tight and just wouldn't let go. Like, that's when I saw her as my
Mhm.
daughter. I didn't see her problems. I just saw her as my sweet little baby that I was so
Right.
proud of and that I loved more than anything.
You don't see those
And
tubes and wires.
yes, no. And I feel like once you can have that shift, it makes your stay like more bearable,
Mhm.
if you need those moments of just being with your baby.
You do.
Akron Children's now they buy these and they give them to the new families up at like the NICU when they're
I
admitted.
love that.
So yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna share this too because I think
thank
like
you.
we need more things like this. The words are absolutely beautiful and it
Yeah.
shares the story of there's hope. All the
Mhm,
different, you can look past it. You're ours. There's hope for the moms that need
mhm,
it. But
mhm,
then also the illustrations are beautifully illustrated,
mhm,
but what they are illustrations of is
mhm,
so important. Like
mhm,
I I've had pictures of Cadence on my Facebook for 16 years,
mhm,
since I had
mhm,
Facebook. And the only pictures I have of her, she has tubes on, other than when she passed away.
mhm.
People have made comments like, how can you put an intubated baby online? How can you do that? Like, because I first
But
of all,
she did
I
it.
don't see that. Like,
Yeah.
if that bothers you, don't watch it or don't look at
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
that happens. So many of us have that is the only memory of our children.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's not something to be ashamed about.
No. Yeah, not every NICU story ends with bringing your baby home. Sometimes it ends there in the NICU, and that is the hardest thing I think somebody can go through is to lose, like, their child. Like, you're not supposed to. We're not supposed to say goodbye to our children. It's supposed to be the other way around,
No.
but we can, like you said, like, you still have these moments where you'll never forget with them. So each moment and I think that's going into the NICU with Cora and Jane, I felt like because I had Audrey, okay, I'm gonna find a moment in each day where I'm just like connecting with them and loving on them because I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know what the next hour holds. And so, yeah, just trying to
Be
cherish.
present as much
Yeah,
as you
be
can.
present.
You
Yeah.
when your world is rocked in that way,
Hmm.
it really does make you realize how to just be present in that moment.
Yes.
And it can
Mhm.
all just be gone in a second.
Yeah. Yeah. And it changes the way you live, right?
It
Like,
does. I went from every day for 6 weeks of or from the Ronald McDonald House, walking into the hospital, grab my coffee from downstairs, and just
mhm,
sitting there. And I'd bring my laptop and watch movies, or just be in
mhm,
that room.
mhm,
And the one morning that she was gonna pass, I walked in there, and that's when they told me it doesn't look good, and this is, and
mhm,
then she held on for over 24 hours. But then after she passed away, and like the last time walking out of there, you're not going back, and it's just final. Like you're just pregnant. You were just anticipating this baby. You were just watching her fight for her life. You had some hope, and it's done, and it's just silent.
It's done. Yeah.
No one's talking about it anymore. No one's. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah. People don't know what to say, or they think saying something will just bring up pain. And I don't think a mom would ever get tired of hearing somebody say, "Hey, I thought of your daughter the other day," or to like say their name. Like, it's so meaningful. Like,
It is. For me, it's like she was only here for such a short time. And then I was so young, and it's like, I wasn't married at the time. Would any of my future husband, anyone I would have come into relationships with, even my future children, nobody was going to remember her or appreciate her. You know, I was the only one that really like felt the loss of my daughter, but that wasn't true.
No.
And the fact that even 16 years later, people will do little things. And at first I'm just kind of like frozen because you don't know how to react. You know, you're just like, okay, like, I don't know. Like, not that I love it. I love when people try to like remember her for me, but it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to start crying, but I don't want to just like profess my thank you to you. But like, just please, people know, it's just saying their name. Buying my in-laws brought me flowers on the anniversary of her death. Like, that is enough. And that people don't know what to say. People don't know what to do. Just show people that you love them. And that is enough.
Yeah.
When they go through something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to have words to fix it. Your words aren't going to fix it.
No.
But just, showing.
I recognize that you went through this.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember her too.
I remember her too.
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah, it is. And I will remember your Audrey Lynn forever and ever.
Thank you.
I'm sure she's up there with my feisty girl, making sure all their siblings are being crazy together. And you are local, so I'm going to throw a little pitch in here. We are doing an in-person meeting for our first time on August 16th in the Northeast Ohio area. And so it's going to be our first in-person thing, just to kind of connect. It's going to be super chill. I'm going to provide some coloring books. If you crochet or have any kind of craft, if you need to bring the kids, you're more than welcome to. And I can bring my older daughter, and she'll kind of keep them busy for us. But
awesome.
Yeah, so if you're interested in that, we'll make sure we get you the link to that. Okay. But then again, what is the name of your book?
It's Hello Little Love.
Hello Little Love. And it is available on Amazon or really anywhere you can get your books.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing. And I just can't believe you've gone through so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this and giving us an opportunity to share, and just listening to other people's stories. It's encouraging and inspiring. And so thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course.
Melissa's story is one that lingers, a reminder that grief doesn't disappear. It changes shape. And through that pain, there's also purpose and a fierce, unrelenting love. If today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to connect with Melissa and check out her children's book, Hello Little Love, written in honor of Audrey. It's a beautiful tribute to the children we hold in our hearts, not just our arms. And if you're looking for a space to feel seen, supported, and never alone in your journey, we'd love to have you join the Silent Mother online community. It's a place where loss is met with compassion, motherhood is honored in all forms, and healing is something we do together. As always, thank you for being here, for listening, for holding space, and for carrying these stories forward. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. Remember, your story matters, your grief is not too much, and your motherhood, no matter what it looks like, is everything. Thanks for listening.